ARP Foundation CSEP program, which is a senior employment program where seniors can work in community placements, and AARP Foundation will pay their employment costs. There's no burden whatsoever to the county for that type of participation. My staff and I, in their assessment, we see that there were needs to help support the current staff that we have. But at this point, I know I spoke at the last task force meeting around how we are looking at our model and looking at the age of our site managers, our volunteers, because we are concerned, because it's a valuable asset to have the commitment, the long-term commitment that we have, but also it is a threat because some of our older adults who are serving our other older adults are 85, 94. And so if they chose to decide to move to Florida or not to serve anymore, it would be an impact to our program. So myself, our division director, Ms. Jones Servakis, our department manager, Ms. Maisha Haddon, who are both seated here with me today, we have begun in our leadership discussions in our department around how will we look at not only protecting the model as it is now, recruiting new resources, but also making sure that the folks who serve our older adults reflect the county. That's very important to me.
Okay. And have you came up with any plans on that effort as far as the volunteers and
At this
making
point,
sure you have?
thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, we are in a fact-finding mode. We have our next leadership discussion scheduled for later on this month. Our goal is to really have a plan locked and ready to implement for fiscal year 2021. I believe in not moving too fast, moving progressively with a beat, but being slow, especially since I am still new to the county, and I want to make sure that we don't make any abrupt changes. But the only thing that we have put in place, as I shared, that the AARP Foundation, that free resource, it was put, they signed it maybe a couple weeks ago. We got those final sign-offs from legal and the executive's office, so we're really excited. I know when I spoke with Joan earlier this week about where the progress was going, and she's going to request that the job descriptions for those positions, because they are paid, they will share them, and we can also share them with you, because you may have individuals in your district who may be interested in serving in that part-time capacity, but also receiving payment for that. Because as we know, all older adults can't afford to work without some type of pay.
Right. And I want to thank you for that one pager that you gave us today at the full board. I think that was very insightful as to having everything on one page so we can see it and understand it. So I really appreciate that. And also for you coming out to my quarterly tea time to talk to some of the folks in my district. So I appreciate that as well.
Thank you for your invitation. Thank you so much.
Did we have any questions from any of the other commissioners? All right.
Thank you for the food.
And you're welcome. Thank you. That's what was served in Wayne County today.
Forgot about the
Yeah.
meeting, but
Yes, all older adults, yes, all older adults in Wayne County that we serve received the menu that was served by Valley Foods over in the other room. And thank you all for stopping by and for your connection to our program.
Yeah, that was a great idea to bring that in too,
We
so
want
that
you
we
to
could see.
experience what they experience.
Yes.
And the offer stands if you would love to come and visit a site in your district. And even if one is not in your district and you want to come out, we can arrange to take you into a community in Wayne County, because you all represent your district, but you also serve the entire county. And we'd be happy to provide that experience for you. Myself and my staff, we would be our pleasure to do that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
just
you.
know it's not the first time they've served us before.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Second time was a charm. Thank you so much.
Next item.
Item D2, a discussion with Kwesi Betsarai, Director of the Division of Veteran Services regarding division operating and administrative staffing.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for telling me it was afternoon. I was going to say good morning.
Your name and title, please.
Kwesi Betsarai, Division Director of Veteran Services.
Thank you. So,
So there's, I can tell you this, I'm still excited about veteran services.
all right.
It matters. Yes, it is, it's rewarding to go out and meet so many veterans all across Wayne County. And all kinds of places, all kinds of large and small places. But, so I think one of the first things you guys wanted to talk about was the full-time employees. So we had put a bid out for customer service supervisor, which is essentially an outreach coordinator that the commission had provided monies for. And as I said the last time, we took one of the full-time employees who left and we bumped up some of the wages for that role. So we have 2 outreach coordinator roles, if you will, that I'm currently interviewing for. I actually have an interview tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock with one candidate, and we're taking a look at the other candidates that applied as well. So that's where I'm at with that piece. So what does that mean in the interim? In the interim, the team is storming, norming, and forming. We're a very tight group in my office right now. I've got 2 full-time employees that are focused on those clients that come inside the office on Monroe Street. And we're always doing our very best to make sure that we over-deliver quality service to those veterans. We're hearing some really interesting stories out there. What's great about this is that I'm a lot closer to it than I expected because we don't have the full complement of staff, so that allows me an opportunity to listen in on some of the conversations from our veterans, and I'm learning there's an awful lot, there's a whole lot of need, financial counseling for our veterans, and which essentially are Wayne County residents. And I am seeing there's quite a few that are return clients, which that's not a big deal to me, but sometimes we found a lot of them are being maybe preyed upon by, payday loan companies, and there's a lot of mismanagement of some of the veterans' funds. Those are my learnings. That's what I'm finding so far. And I say that because quite often I get told that Wayne County is low, or the state of Michigan is low on the rankings as far as how do you help veterans or where veterans prefer to live. And so I'm having ongoing conversations with veterans in the community about what would it take for us to get higher up in that ranking, because number one would not happen overnight over the next year. But what does it take? And some of those answers fall in the line of housing, affordable housing, and that would have to go up and down the scale because out of roughly 78,000 to 83,000 veterans, over the last 7 years, we've probably taken care of maybe 4,000. I did my data dig the other day. So there's a lot of veterans that either don't need any help, don't know about us, or don't qualify. So I'm trying to figure out ways to fill those gaps to better serve those veterans in Wayne County. And so one of those ways, even though we're short-staffed, I am the primary person going out for all the outreach. Last week I was in Inkster for a clergy census event, and I spoke to the audience there about what services we provide. And then there's there's quite a few people who do not know that we exist. So my task is to make sure they know about us. And one of the results from that meeting last week, I'm going to be speaking at a church in Ecorse on Sunday. So it's an opportunity-rich environment as far as educating the public about Wayne County Veteran Services and what we offer. And along the way, I also tell the Wayne County population about the other services that Wayne County provides, particularly HHVS, what we provide for our citizens. So it's lots of learnings there. Actually, next week as well, on the 10th of March, I'll be a part of a panel discussion on veterans in Dearborn at the University of Michigan campus. So again, we're still having rich conversations about what does it take to take care of our veterans in Wayne County. So those are my primary areas of focus right now, and then just getting some money set aside, having some conversations, and the right guidance about how to get these monies allocated for more advertising at the along billboards and movie theaters. And I have some brochures. Somebody asked about some brochures. If you could, one, send everybody to our website, that would save me the cost of printing out some materials. Because everything that's on this brochure is on our website. And then just getting that information out there. Tell your constituents that we're open for business, and we do our very best to get to a yes for our Wayne County veterans. And so we're excited about some other opportunities to work with some churches about getting the word out there, and potential collaborations on some housing initiatives for veterans as well. So I'm excited. I'm sober-minded, but I'm excited about what's ahead of us in Wayne County.
Okay, thank you. Have you talked to the treasurer at all about his counseling? They have financial counseling in the very building that you're in. And maybe somehow you can partner with him because it may be some of those issues are related to housing as well, as you just talked about. But they do have a financial counseling resources at the treasurer's office.
Yes, we've had some, Mr. Sabri and I, we've had some conversations about partnering with his department and helping veterans. I'll tell you, being located in that building on the 4th floor, he's on the 5th floor, has bode well for us because a lot of the veterans come downstairs to get property tax assistance. So being in that same space is great. Having access and conversations with Mr. Sabri and his staff is going to pay off as a result. And November, we're going to do a joint event for Veterans Day versus the Treasurer's Office being the sole owner of that plan. We'll partner with his team in the future.
Okay. And are there any groups in particular that you have, like, for instance, the American Legion? You talked about in a previous meeting that you would be working with various groups. Are there any in particular that you've reached out to recently, or do you have like a
Excuse me.
a number or set goals for which organizations or groups and
Sure.
things like that?
So American Legion, we want to do some work with them. A lot of times it's a matter of going out to speak to the various chapters for American Legion. Or I went to Montford Point Marines a few weeks ago to speak to that body there. The Disabled American Veterans on Puritan and Cheyenne, I believe, a couple weeks ago. So whenever there's an opportunity to go out and inform that body of people, I go out there. They have not presented an opportunity to partner on anything substantial. The biggest thing for them is to make sure that veterans understand what services are out there or available to those veterans in Wayne County.
Okay.
Best for Vets is a small nonprofit. They've come here before and they speak to the body. They have a meeting on the first Friday of every month. And I've been to a couple of theirs, and I may try to stop through there again. I was there last month, and I may try to go by tomorrow night as well. And they host a meeting at the Detroit Police Safety Office downtown. And what I find there is roughly 30 to 40 veterans that need some assistance. And they need assistance with education. They need assistance with housing and financial planning. So I go in there and explain to them what we can do, how we can bridge that gap. So again, I try to partner with as many organizations as I can to understand, to meet them where they are.
Okay, and I know you're short of staff, so that
Yes.
makes it more difficult. All right, well, thank you. Any, Commissioner Scott? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you involved with the new housing that's going to go into Highland Park?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for the women.
For the women veterans, yes, it's exciting to have that.
Thinking about
It's,
that,
it's exciting to have that opportunity to partner.
yes.
And I did not know there was such a gap for women, but it only makes sense. For example, I believe the housing at the Michigan Veterans Foundation does not provide housing for women. And a lot of time, the female veterans, they have kids, and there's not suitable accommodations for those female veterans. And so we want to partner with them, if at all possible, to provide that transitional housing and long-term housing for those female veterans.
Very good.
That's important, and this 2020 is the year of the female veterans, so we want to make sure
Okay,
we get in on that deal.
very good, because I'm excited about it.
Go Highland Park, I'm excited too.
Yes, indeed.
HP for life,
That's right.
always a Highland Parker. I didn't know you guys were here. Yeah.
Gentleman in the audience, I don't know whether you talked to him or not, but I had invited him here when I was chair, but I see he's here today, so you're gonna let him say?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Hattis? Mhm.
You know, you just mentioned a couple items, and I felt that something needed to be done because you said many veterans don't know you exist, or what you do and what you do. And I remember a few years ago, we discussed that, and I discussed that with retired general who was representing the state of Michigan with the Veteran Affairs. And, sorry, I did the same thing.
He was busy doing mine and
Yeah.
yours.
Love you. Good. And we discuss if the armed forces in general, when they have honorable discharge for somebody or retire and whatever they exit in after short term or long term, if they have for each soldier his state or her state, Michigan or Illinois, what's available in their state, like that they walk out knowing if they have a need, where to go. Is that ever happen? You know if there anything available to the veteran when they honorably discharge?
So I'll tell you what happens when a soldier, sailor, any service member comes off active duty. There's a series of classes that they'll have to go to, and there's this check sheet, and you get information on your VA benefits, housing, education, career counseling, resume development. I'll tell you, a lot of service members may not pay attention to those meetings because they can't wait to get off active duty. It's just like a kid who's graduating high school. They're like, okay, I'll see you later. And they have maybe a bucket or two of monies, and they can't imagine that they're going to fall on hard times, and they may not keep up with that document. However, if they go to various websites, the federal government websites, VA, or the state of Michigan, MVAA, they'll find those resources there. But quite often, what I'm finding, a lot of veterans in that transition period don't realize what's ahead. And I say that a lot of times because the veterans come from a very secure environment on the military base, as Commissioner McCormick would know. They're not all taught financial literacy. So they have a very secure, safe environment where there's discounted food at the PX or the NEX. The housing is provided for free, so when they come into the civilian side of the house, they don't know how to plan ahead, and they're not well equipped. So that's where some of the challenges come from with the audience that I see at our division. So the information is out there. It's a question of what are they going to do with it, and what type of holes they fall into, and do they reach out for the right amount of help.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're all set.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you for all that you do. I'm sorry. I'm Commissioner Baidoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to add a comment. I recently learned of the passing of Tyrone Chapman.
Yes, sir.
You know, he passed,
Yes.
I think it was late last month, so you guys were aware of that. I just wanted,
That is.
yeah,
that
at the
is.
Michigan Veterans Foundation. I worked with him through the Dearborn Board of Realtors on many occasions.
Yes.
When we went down to feed the homeless, he was a great man and great veteran. God bless his soul. Just wanted to mention
Yes.
that.
Very nice, man. Very nice. And he cared about the veterans. That's a heck of a gap to try to fill.
It is. No, he lived in Southfield. So, yeah. His services are Saturday in Pontiac. So, and I actually was gonna read a little bit of his history, if I can pull it up. Because he was also, the post that I belonged to, Coleman A. Young Post 202, he was once the commander of that post. Yeah. So okay. I thought I had the information for the services Friday, 5:30 at Pleasant Grove, 13651 DeQuinder. And it does not list the services for Saturday, which is in Pontiac. But the public viewing will be held Friday, 3/6/2020, 5:30 at Pleasant Grove, 13651 DeQuinder. 5:30. So anyone that wants to. Thank you again. Thank you for coming and all that you do.
So there was on the agenda for a resolution?
Yes,
You're doing a
I
resolution?
am.
Well, I would
To
like
be
a
on
part
it,
of that.
sure. Yep, no problem.
Made that motion.
Well, that was what
Ask if
Jewel was
that
talking
was the-
about, yes. Yeah. Okay, matter of fact, let's just send out a email for all commissioners.
It should be,
Okay.
because he has known all of us.
Okay, I will do that. Okay. All right, next item.
Item E, such other matters as may properly be submitted before the committee.
There is, we have two veterans, or not two, one. Styron and Al Williams. Did you want to come to the table to speak? Two guests. Styron is with Best Vets. We just talked about his organization that he started. And Al Williams, I'm not sure which title we use for you, Mr. Williams.
I'm
The veterans, not the political.
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
All right.
I'm
Can't do that at this.
I understand completely. Been at this table many times. It's good to be here today. Thank you for having us. I am a supporter, advocate, and somewhat of a board member to Best for Vets. And I have a personal story.
Your name, please.
My name is Al Williams.
Thank you.
And I have a personal story about my grandfather, and then this young man sitting next to me. So my grandfather served in the Korean War in World War II, and he was denied multiple times his benefits. When he passed away, the only thing that we received as family members, the only thing he ever really received was a flag, and he didn't see that until after he passed. And so, in knowing that, I have a few friends who have served in different capacities in armed services. One of them is Steron Batchelor. And when he came home, we got a lot closer, really became real friends, more like brothers than anything else. And I can remember him telling his story about how he served, where he served, and why he served. And when he came home, he was more like a Renaissance man than anything else. But I was already into working for government, and we always worked together on a number of different levels. So he introduced me to people, I introduced him to people. Some of the people I introduced him to were great public servants like yourselves. And then one day, a couple of years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, he called me and said he's been denied again. He was ready to do a press conference to highlight the things that veterans go through every day, especially African American veterans, and the lack of service the state of Michigan provides for them, for those who come home. And I said, well, you can't do a press conference by yourself, Steron. You might want to go get 10 of your friends who might be going through the same thing. And then he said, after an hour-long conversation or so, we got off the phone, and about a month later, he called me back saying that he started this organization called Best for Vets. And it was more than 10 members, more than 10 friends who were with him. And ever since then, we've both been on this quest to improve the quality of life for veterans throughout the state of Michigan, not just in Detroit, not just in Wayne County, but we've been to Grand Rapids, we've been to Muskegon, we've been to Battle Creek, Lansing, all over the state, because as I learned more about the services of veterans in Michigan, even then and now today, it's still the same, that we're 49th in the country when it comes to actually servicing our veterans. In the city of Detroit, in the list of the top 100 cities, urban cities in America, Detroit is actually number 100 as the worst place for a veteran to actually live. And so what we did was Steron, and I just support him, what he did was he stepped up and started to invite veterans, as well as make connections on and learn more about how we can be helpful as an organization to benefit veterans. And from there, I'm going to let Steron take over and tell you a little bit more specifically about what Best for Vets is doing now, and how we want to be more helpful to Wayne County government.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me? Good afternoon. So, again, my name is Steron Batchelor. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I was a sergeant in the United States Army up to 13 Bravo, field artilleryman, and that's a king of battle for those who don't know. But we actually served 18 months in Iraq, 16 months in Iraq, 18 months total time deployment. And when I returned back home, I did not know that I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I did not know that I had a series of injuries to my body that would change the direction of my life. And it took me about 10 years to be able to get all of my benefits. I'm currently 100% service-connected disabled veteran. And part of the thing that we do at Best for Vets, we help veterans to be able to get connected to their resources. Unfortunately, there are a lot of resources for veterans, but there is no standard bearer for communication of those benefits. So you literally have veterans that are standing about 45 feet away from the door of the building on Michigan, and they're holding a sign saying that they need their veterans benefits, or they need $1. They literally have no idea that they can even go to the 12th floor. So we have very basic things where you have a lot of folks that come out and say all that they're doing for veterans. And there are a lot of people that are doing great things. But what we do at Best for Vets is every first Friday of the month, we meet at 1301 3rd, which is Detroit Public Safety Headquarters. It's literally the safest place in town. Part of the reason why we meet there, because we want people to feel like they have access. It has wheelchair access. People have disabilities, they can come. But we meet from 6 to 8 p.m. And what we do is basically a form of a peaceful protest. And we invite folks everybody that is saying what they are doing for veterans, we invite them out. And we also invite the people that live in the shelters and people who are struggling and people who have never heard these information being able to be passed out. And we basically allow folks to be able to not only receive the information that can change their life, but also to be able to get a hands-on view of the people that they are missing. Because what happens a lot of times, especially with the political arena, is you have a lot of folks that come around on Veterans Day. A lot of people take pictures. A lot of folks want to hand out, items, clothing, turkeys, whatever the case may be. But once the seasons change, that's it. And we really don't have any legislation that is moving forward to really be able to help change and effectively change the lives of veterans. So I will simply say this, that part of the biggest thing that we are doing is that we are trying to galvanize not only the veterans here in the city of Detroit, Wayne County, Oakland County, and even Washington County, but really we are aiming to be able to galvanize veterans from all over the state to be able to have a march. We're going to be planning a march to Lansing, simply to be able to recognize that veteran suicide is still a huge problem here in not only the state, but also in the United States of America. Also that there's an opioid crisis. Veterans are twice as likely to die from opioid overdose than their civilian counterparts, and we all know that that's an epidemic. So what is the word that we will use for veterans? I don't know. But the last piece is that we really need to bring awareness to the fact that each state receives the same allotment of dollars from the federal government. But how those states allot those dollars are up to the state. And in the state of Michigan, we are dropping the ball. Especially when it comes to the issues of female veterans, which has been a huge piece of what we have been focusing on this year. Because if you are a female veteran and you happen to be homeless and you have children, many times those female veterans, they do not go for help in a proper manner because they don't want to risk losing their children. So that's the number one thing. But then if you are a female veteran and you have a service animal, service dog, or a animal that has been given to you by the VA, and you are trying to go to a shelter, you have to get rid of that animal, which is counterproductive. And so just being able to focus on those areas alone, that simple thing is something that we are trying to do. And again, I would like to invite each and every person out to our monthly meeting. We meet on the first Friday of each month from 6 to 8 p.m. at 1301 3rd, Detroit, Michigan, 48226. We have partnered with the Detroit Police Department. We have partnered with Volunteers of America. We have also partnered with the Detroit Pistons, the African American Leadership Institute, and several other organizations to be able to provide the proper information to veterans in need. And the one last thing that I will say is that I think that this is just me speaking from a personal aspect as a veteran and somebody that has been working to try to help veterans. I think that what we need from a county, city, and state level is we need to focus on trying to roll out a veteran seminar, much like they do the Women's Empowerment Seminar every year or how they do Comic-Con every year down at the TCF. There are about 80,000 veterans that live in Wayne County alone. So to say that we don't have the veterans to actually fill that building is not true. We can be able to do that and be able to put on seminars so that we can have resources to be rolled out to the public and be able to get the media involved to actually let veterans know where they can go, because if nobody tells them, they just don't know, and it leads to homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have something more to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that Wayne County is stepped up a lot. I mean, you have Kwesi who's doing some great work, but there are so many underserved veterans in this county. Kwesi can't touch them all. There are a lot of organizations that are doing great work, but there are so many veterans out here who just don't have have not been touched and don't have the resources to get to where they need to be to get the help that they need. And that's where organizations like Best for Vets comes into play. So we provide free counseling to veterans every first Friday of the month. We usually get 30 new people, 25 to 30 new people every single month. They also make sure that there are social activities that they can participate in. Because, I've been around a number of veterans that, when you talk to them about their story, sometimes it's easier for them to talk to another veteran than it is to talk to a civilian. And so we try to make sure that we provide a space for veterans to have those conversations with each other and learn from each other. I think it's important that, Wayne County continues to do the work that they do. But if we can make sure, if we can use Best for Vets to make sure that more veterans get into rooms like this to understand the resources that are out there for them, we'll do the work. We'll get them here, and then we'll make sure that we do the follow through. Best for Vets has been doing a phenomenal job every single month, with little to no resources from anybody. He literally, we've had a housing program that we pretty much funded on our own. We've had, and a lot of the work and a lot of the funding really comes from this young man right here to the right. If there were any more resources out there for organizations like Best for Vets coming from the county level, it's a nonprofit organization that doesn't look to make a profit off of anything. They only look to provide a service to make sure that there are veterans. I mean, the stories that we get are phenomenal. There have been people as old as 90 years old who've come to Best for Vets, walked out of there with more information, and have come back to tell their story on how they've been helped to get to almost 100% of their disability benefits as possible. And then on top of that, the advocacy work that we do, just being able to do the research and explain to veterans where they need to advocate. Right now in the state of Michigan, in order to almost get anything as a veteran, you got to be 100% covered. Just about 100%. As opposed to places like Indiana and Ohio and other states where you can get tax-free housing once you get to 30% coverage as opposed to 100% coverage. And so those are some of the things that we're advocating for, some of the help that we need, whether it's resources, education, and some advocacy on policy changes in the state of Michigan that we might be able to help you guys on. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much for coming out and all that you do. I've attended several of your meetings, so I know the good work that you do. One of the questions that I have is, stay around, you talked about legislation to help with the issues that veterans face. Do you or have you looked at crafting what that would look like, or what the demands are?
Yes, actually, we have. We're actually basing our model. I'll actually hit on it slightly. We want to be able to model, so we know which states actually are number one in spending on veteran, and we actually know which states have the best resources for veterans. So we basically want to be able to take a carbon copy of that and be able to present it to our state legislation and people who are able to make those changes. But the biggest piece is, like Al said, if you are 100% service connected in the state of Michigan, there are a lot of benefits for you. So. Being tax exempt on your property taxes is one. Your children being able to go to school and your spouse as well is another. But when we look at the state of Indiana, seeing that you only have to be 30% for that very same benefit, these are things that we can immediately change. It does not have to be that way. We have standards in other states that we can take and make a carbon copy of what they are doing. And so we have crafted those things. That's a huge reason why I've been working with Al. The other huge issue that we have is that many veterans that are receiving if you're not, some veterans are not receiving care at the VA hospitals because they're spread apart the state. So if you're not in the local areas, or if you're not in Ann Arbor, if you're not in Detroit, and I think they have another one there like Traverse City somewhere, some up there. But if you're not in those immediate areas and you need to be able to receive some help, especially psychiatric help, there is a lot of people don't know that the telepsych program does not allow for veterans to be able to call in to a certain mental health place. You have to go. You know what I mean? So if you're not, if you're not calling a crisis hotline directly, they don't really have it set up so that you can be able to say, "Hey, I'm a veteran. I'm in need." And I need to go to a specific hospital for psychiatric care. So we don't really have those things set up, and those are things that we really need to be able to get done.
Thank you again for coming. Does anyone else?
Yes,
Commissioner Hattis?
Something came
a
to my
question?
mind because you just mentioned how far apart the veteran facility, veteran hospital are. Is there anything we could help veteran who doesn't have a car, and there are too many of those? How can we make them be able to go from one side to another?
Well, one of the things, Commissioner, that one of the biggest things, I'm actually glad you said that, is that I think that one of the things that we can do to be able to help the veteran community in general is if you can prove that you have served in the military, I think that we need to be able to have a waiver for bus transportation that not only goes with the Detroit public transportation, but also with the smart systems and is interactive with the systems outside of our community. To be able to say if you're a veteran, then you can be able to use that system because a lot of people feel like now that we have Uber and all those other things, but that stuff still costs. So if you're trying to get into the system, part of the thing that frustrates a lot of veterans is when you're trying to get your service-connected benefits, you have to go to so many appointments, and it costs dollars every time. So we can be able to find some sort of way to provide veterans in the state of Michigan with free bus transportation. We're not talking cabs or anything like that. That will help to be able to schedule those appointments, just because transportation is a huge factor as to people not being able to receive their help.
Yeah, it's a huge deterrent. And then, and so I hope that answers your question.
Well, my concern, because I serve on Smart Board, and we have some community, they opt out of a Smart Board.
That's true.
And I give you example, Canton. Canton, it's very large township. What's veteran, and even if you give them a free pass and there are no smart bus go to that area, or DDOT doesn't go that far. So my concern is if we find a way to make sure every veteran have the accessibility or the ability to get where they need to go, that then we really doing a good job. But if we leave some of them out because certain transportation system, their community out of it, then we need to urge those community to opt in because of the veteran. And that might benefit a lot of other people too, because the benefit, it's a huge now, especially in this kind of economy. We have a people in the suburb work in Detroit. They need to be connected. And we have people in Detroit work in the suburb. And there's some out community in the middle of those routes. So that's why we need to address that. And my final question, you mentioned so many of the things it's very important in a veteran's life, and I hope we could one day find answer. You've been working with Wayne County Veteran Affair, and as you mentioned, there anything else Wayne County could do with you and work together to be able to fill up some of those gaps?
Well, I would have to say that Kwesi Betsarai, ever since he's came on board, I don't think he's missed a meeting since he's become the director, and so we've had an outstanding relationship in terms of growing and being able to get the information out. The only thing that I think that we need to be able to help you all more in terms of being able to partner with actually getting the word out of what is going on. That is the biggest thing. I think that being able to create media, social media, whether that be, commercials that we run on Facebook or advertisement that we run on Instagram, those type of things, to be able to get the word out to veterans who just don't know. Because unfortunately, lack of knowledge is destructive. And so we have so many people that don't have the access. There are really no billboards to say what, just basic advertisement. I mean, we all know where McDonald's is, and they still have commercials. So, if that's the case, then why don't we have commercials for folks that are trying to get life-changing information?
I literally run into a veteran probably twice a week. Wearing a hat, I identify them and I say, "Hey, are you a veteran?" And I'll introduce myself. I ask them, did they know about Vets for Vets? Have they heard of these programs? And most of the time they say no. I was at a Coney Island last week and ran into a young man, had a veteran's hat on. I think he was in the Navy, and he had been denied multiple times. He's in his 70s. Has not got any disability benefits because they said they can't prove that he actually served in wartime. Not to say that he didn't, but that's a problem that we need to get through and get past. And he just sometimes doesn't know. I think that there are some veterans that sometimes just don't know the language that they need to use. And so that's part of the problem. Education and resources and making sure that we do a better job reaching out to people. Kwesi, just like you said, is doing a great job, but he doesn't. We need more Kwesis in Wayne County doing more. And then the last thing I want to mention is, Wayne County has the largest. Veterans Court in the state of Michigan. If there was more resources that could be provided to the Veterans Court to do more work for veterans who might be in some sort of issue and some sort of problem, and if you can pay more attention to that, I think it'd be more beneficial to our veterans throughout the county. They're doing a great job now, but they can do a lot more if they had more resources.
I want to thank you.
It's a great, I want to thank you for what you're doing because I experienced one veteran. He was really, we have to fight with the state senator, with the congressman. He was injured in the war. He was put 30 days on the mothership, where they have a ship as a hospital in it. Every evidence he have, and he could never get his Purple Heart. Took 3 years. He died. After he died, 3 months, they give the Purple Heart to his family. That's why I really, because I see so many stories touch my heart. And I really appreciate what you guys do. And I hope you and Wayne County work together to be able to fill that gap.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And Commissioner Knizik just stepped out, but he's also a veteran as well. So we are definitely, myself, we're advocates. Commissioner Scott, I know she's been working for years to help veterans, so we all have. Quick question, Mr. Betsarai. Do we or have we looked at any advertising beyond what we're doing, like billboards, or can you just?
You should ask.
Okay.
So
Can you come back to and introduce yourself one more time and that good stuff?
Kwesi Betsarai, Director of Veteran Services, Wayne County.
Thank you.
So yes, I'm going to have some conversations with our budget team to talk about advertising in the movie theaters, the previews that occur before the big show. So we have a proposal out there for advertising there, and then there's one also for billboards, and it covers all of Wayne County. So I'm going to pick the areas that we need more visibility. Detroit is well covered, but I want to get to the out-county areas. So that is part of my plan, is to advertise it, our services like that.
Great. Commissioner Knizik?
Did I make that work?
Yes.
Okay. My first time using it.
And I told them that you were a veteran when you
for your
stepped out
Okay,
and,
okay.
yeah, but go right
Thank you,
ahead.
ma'am. Yeah, this is my first committee meeting here on this issue. I know we're meeting shortly here to sort of go over the work that's being done in Wayne County. On the access to benefits and healthcare piece, it is atrocious. You're absolutely right, and it's certainly not anyone's fault around here. I think we do have to give credit to 2014, President Obama had signed legislation that allowed veterans, if you were outside that 40-mile radius, if you were waiting a certain amount of time before you get into your appointment, you go see that private provider, send us the bill, essentially. And so what I see you guys talking about, how can we increase access to information? How can we push that information out? I think you guys are spot on, and I really appreciate that. And the one thing that you said, Mr. Williams, I really appreciate, is highlighting the fact that black veterans are incredibly underserved in this state. And you think back to World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam even, this country had no problem sending young black men off to war to come back to a country that didn't even grant them the same rights as the people that they fought next to. So particularly veterans of color, my sister was also a Marine, and so I'm sensitive to the issues that are faced by women veterans. I just really appreciate you acknowledging that. And when you look at how that has sort of manifested itself here in the state of Michigan since that time, we have 2 veterans homes in the state of Michigan. One is in Marquette, one is in Grand Rapids, and the largest concentration of veterans, particularly veterans of color, are right here in Wayne County in the city of Detroit. And we have absolutely nothing coming in by way of those state resources, or those federal resources, rather. So generally, just a thank you for the good work that you're doing. I look forward to familiarizing myself more with what you're doing and identifying ways that we can be helpful. And then, I know personally I hate it when people say thank you for your service. I won't say it to you, but I'm thinking it. Thank you.
Just real quick, our next Best for Vets meeting, we'll invite you every month. It's tomorrow, right down the street at 6 o'clock at the Detroit Public Safety Headquarters from 6 to 8. Come hear the stories. Come see us in action. Come meet all of those who are on the board and those who continue to advocate to improve the quality of life for veterans. It's very important to see, especially public servants, for those veterans to see public servants who are advocating on their behalf at tables like this, because they don't always get to tables like this. And so I know you don't like to hear it, but I really appreciate you. Let me just say that. And I hope to see you guys, and I hope to see all of you at any one of our upcoming meetings. 6 o'clock every first Friday of the month from 6 to 8 at the Detroit Public Safety Headquarters, starting tomorrow.
Thank you again, Mr. Severant. You
I
wanna-
did have one. I did have
Okay.
one thing to say to the commissioners, and I'm so glad that you brought up the African American veterans piece. But we have to bring this up. Many of the veterans that we service, especially African American and Hispanic American veterans, they have disproportionately messed up discharges. So we see bad conduct discharges. We see general other than honorable, or general under honorable conditions, right, for many of these veterans. And we know that this is prominent, especially in Vietnam and Korean War era veterans. And we know that the climate of the entire nation at that time was a lot different. And so we have the shadows of systematic racism that have allowed these veterans to go years and years and years and not be able to receive services. And that's a huge problem, because even when you do go to, and even when you do find out about this information, oh, I can have somebody help me with my taxes, or I can be able to get a place to be able to help me to get a furniture loan, or to be able to get a place. Oh, but my discharge has been messed up since the 70s, and I have no idea on how to be able to fix it. So these are something that I would like for us to be able to try to come up with some things on maybe a county level or even a city level, so that we can be able to do a specific drive specifically targeting those people who are under that situation, so that we can get them in connection with legal experts, so that we can be able to get those upgrades happening, so that they can even be able to have access to their benefits. That's all I really wanted to add.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for coming again. What I'd like to do is if you can reach out to my office so that we can come up with a resolution of some kind to address some of the issues that you talked about today.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, you already have a relationship with our director, so that's great.
He gets 2 thumbs ups from us.
Yes, yes, he's doing a wonderful job. Yeah, yeah. So again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda,
Item F, public comments.
any public comments? Public comments? Next item?
Item G, adjournment.
So, oh. So adjourned.
You got yourself. My first one. Yeah.